And sooner or later, it says this hangout on there is live. I'm live. All right. So I've been thinking about putting out this video for a couple months, and I kept holding off on it because I was insecure about what type of response, if any response. If there's no response, then great. You know what I mean? Then there's no fallout. But uh, but I was insecure about if there were fallout from what I'm about to discuss. And the thing is I've discussed this on the major platform before. I discussed this on .NET Rocks, the very first time I was on the .NET Rocks podcast, and a lot of people they felt what I was saying. And there were a couple people that they weren't trying to hear that because they were ousted, right? I was basically exposing people that were being wasteful, right? So what are we talking about? What are we talking about? All right. Well, the title of this video is, I thought I called it like what software developers don't want their employers to know. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, if you if you are footing the bill for software developers or a software developer, I think you deserve to know how your money is being spent. I think you deserve to know where the majority of that cost is going towards. And I got a secret for you. It's not writing code. It's not actually building the software. It's not. And you're probably scratching your head like, oh, I'm paying these people to build software. If they're not writing code, if they're not building my software, then what are they doing? Okay. I'm not sure if I should answer that question right now or if I should keep talking, right? So maybe I should keep talking. Oh. So there's some things, right? I think like 10 years ago, um, there was an outsourcing movement amongst employers here in the States, especially in the States. I'm not sure if England and Australia were doing the same thing, but especially in the States, they were sending software development jobs overseas, specifically to India. I think when we think of outsourcing amongst software, we immediately think about India, and so that was occurring, and because the Indians were building software at a fraction of the price that Americans were. The discoveries that were made during that movement um, were that, one, communication skills, right, and that I don't think has anything to do with ethnicity. I mean, there's probably a part of it, but it's more of you're trying to communicate with someone that is like far away, that's operating at different office hours, and depending on the environment, something that's written may be communicated differently from something that is verbal, and something that's verbal may be communicated differently from the actual collaboration of being face to face and observing gestures as we suggest ideas, etc. So why am I saying all this, right? Well, during that outsourcing movement, we learned that there were additional expenses to outsourcing software. Okay, so there were expenses due to communication, and then there were expenses due to accepting the software, and so the software may have been done, but on a lot of occasions, just like it's done here in the States, this happens in the States as well, that the software, even though it was written, if it was completed successfully based on acceptance testing, it's not extendable. Okay, what does it mean it's not extendable? It means that if you hit a home run and that software not only got completed, but it's actually making money for you, great. You know what happens with successful software? Software that's making money is, well, people want some more features. If only this software can do this, if only that software can do that, right? That's next, right? Because they're loving the software. Well, what happened? Well, the same thing that's happening today. The same thing that you as the employer are probably experiencing right now. If you're lucky, you're experiencing this right now, is it's taking a lot of effort, a lot of time, and a lot of coordination to build new features. I'll say that one more time. It's taking a lot of effort, a lot of coordination to build new features, if those features can even be built. So what may have took, 6 months or even a year, and they're pumping out feature after feature after feature, it starts slowing down more and more and more. And you're like, oh, don't I have the same team? Don't I have the same developer? The answer is, yeah, more than likely, yeah. Well, what's the problem? Well, the problem is your developers or your developer lacks discipline. And that's probably like, I could probably say that more, I don't know, in a nicer way, but no, they lack discipline. And so when I say they lack discipline, well, what do you mean? Why am I paying so much money for features that are taking forever to get done? Well, let's first talk about what your money is really paying for. Okay, I care about your pockets. I care about your budget, because once I feed you this information, I want you to reach out to me, and I want you to hire me to audit the people that are building your solutions, because they may be building your solution, but my question to you is your solution sustainable? If your software is successful, then is your software lasting? Can we keep appending more and more features over it at the same pace? And chances are 90% of, I would say 95% of people that call themselves professional developers, the answer is no, you're not going to get that. There's a reason why flagship software products such as Visual Studio, right? Such as, I don't know anything about the Java ecosystem, but the Eclipse IDE, right? Microsoft Azure platform, Amazon Web Services platform. There's a reason why these software products or these platforms, they keep pumping out features, right? And they keep getting extended more and more and more. And these features have millions of lines of code. And there's, I'm sure there's tens, if not, I don't know if there's hundreds, but I know for a fact there's many developers that are writing code, pushing code every single day. And that requires coordination, right? The more developers you have, theoretically, the more you have to coordinate, right? Well, how is it that these large packages of software that are like 10 years old, 15 years old, when I talk about Visual Studio, I talk about Word, etc. How are these products still being extended, right? And it seems like at a regular cadence, but your developer or developers, there seems to be like a lot of ceremony involved in order for them to push off features. Why is it that when they fix one bug over here or one defect over here, There's 3 more defects over there. How did that happen? How is it that this defect was resolved last month, but the exact same defect is coming back again? How did that happen, right? All right, so are you ready? Are you ready? I'm gonna tell you where your money's going. Your money is not going towards the actual construction of a code base. It's not going towards actual features being built. It's not going towards code that is being written. It's not. You already know where your money's going towards? I'm going to tell you. Your money is going towards your developers spending the majority of their time trying to figure out why their code isn't working. And the way that your developers do that is they lack the ability to do this quickly, to troubleshoot. Troubleshooting is part of software development, right? It's necessary. But what is unnecessary is the method that they're using to do it. It all comes down to a feedback loop, right? It all comes down to, here's my input, what is the output? And so what may take developers such as myself seconds will take your developers minutes, right? You think about that per so many lines of code. Seconds? Them? Minutes. Well, what do I mean by seconds, right? Well, unlike the developers that you have, that you keep on just giving money to, you might as well just make it rain, right? You give them a lot of money that's really unnecessary. It honestly is gross, the amount of money that you're paying and the return on investment that you're receiving, right? But this is what's happening. Your developers are not mature enough, and they do not have an investment in their own personal practice. They don't have a personal practice. They just have clock in, clock out, right? And so what they're doing when they're building your software is, in order to prove that their code works, they have to launch the entire application. They have to launch the entire system with all of its dependencies, everything, the entire mothership. They have to get that thing off the ground. That's what they're doing every single time. Okay. So when there's a business requirement that represents a business rule that they code up, they don't know how to write a program that will, within milliseconds, validate that that business rule has been implemented and with the expected behavior based on specific inputs. They don't know how to do that. The knowledge is there. The knowledge is out there. But the thing is they don't know how to do that. And not only do they not know how to do that, they're not willing to learn how to do that. They want you to pay for them to learn how to do it, even though you hired them as a professional developer. I hope you haven't paid for them to do something that they should already know how to do. So essentially, they're launching the entire system. And when I say launch the entire system, I mean they write some code that they think should work. And then in order for them to test their code, they launch an emulator or a simulator, or they launch the desktop application, or they put a USB cord and they connect it to a phone, and they launch the application. But not only do they launch the application, no, there's more, all right? They then have to take that entire application that probably took, a couple seconds to finally launch, and with mobile, it could be a lot longer. I've seen systems that have taken 30 seconds to actually get launched, or so I say applications where you launch the application, it takes 30 seconds for it to actually boot up. And then, no, I'm not done. Once the application has booted up, once the UI is in front of you, because these developers, they're programmers, but the thing is the only way that they can check to see if their code works is they have to use a mouse, right? Or they have to interact with the actual user interface because they don't have the skill set to do this programmatically without the user interface as a dependency, right? So what they do is they launch an entire system so that the UI is now displayed. Now they have to navigate to, or they have to put the system into a state where they can actually test the specific area of their code. It could be like 1,000 lines of code. It could be like 50,000 lines of code. It could be 1,000,000 lines of code. They have to put the application into a state, navigate to this page, enter in this text, select this item in the list view, and then hit submit. That'll give you opportunity to navigate to the next page, enter in this data, and they're spending all this time putting this application into a state just to test the latest piece of code that works in this crevice, this area of the code base. That takes a lot of time. And you know what happens the majority of the time? They finally, not only do they enter in all the information through the user interface of the application that they launched, that they had to launch based on the latest code that they wrote, but then they have to use this tool called a debugger, in which they're stepping line through line through the code base. And they're taking their mouse and they're hovering it over values, and then they're hovering it over other values, and then they're setting breakpoints, and they're doing a lot of ceremony to try to capture a model of what values or what the current state of the code should reflect through the application. They're doing all this. And then what happens is they see a value that shouldn't be what it is. They say, crap, I forgot to do this. And they terminate the entire application. And they go inside the code base and they add a conditional statement. They add some more lines of code. And then in order for them to check to see if that code works, guess what happens? They launch the entire application again, which could take seconds, even maybe 30 seconds. And then they have to, again, through the user interface, manually, this is a manual effort. This isn't a programmatic effort. This is a manual effort. They have to manually do the exact same thing again, right? In which it's not even determined that they're going to duplicate the exact steps, right? So they're doing this again. They finally, after navigating to pages and putting certain inputs onto the user interface, hitting submit, and then updating the next page that gets displayed through the UI, altering that, and they finally get into a state. They step through the debugger. They start hovering their mouse over different pieces of code that should provide different pieces of data that should align with their expectations. And they say, that looks good, that looks good. Why is that? Oh, yeah, I forgot. And they terminate the whole system again. And this is their feedback loop, all right? This is what you're paying them to do. This is how they're spending your money. They're going through this long cycle of testing their code manually. But they're programmers, but they're testing their code manually. Can this be done programmatically? When it comes to business rules? Yeah. When it comes to integration? Not necessarily. It's integration. You need external systems. You need a UI. In cases, you might need the actual web service, right? But when it comes to business rules, when it comes to just core logic, without the details of external systems being incorporated, that's where your money's really going. I'm really sorry. Like, it's a shame. And I've been holding off, but I see this as a consultant, shop after shop after shop. I have seen death marches with like a dozen developers working overtime, working 70, 80 hours a week, mandatory weekends. And this is what they do. And the thing is there's no automated checks. So what happens when you have a whole bunch of people in the code base and eventually people start checking in their code? Well, you know what happens? Spin up the entire application again. You realize that the code that was checked in by that developer had a side effect, and it broke some features over here. And you're repeating the same process again and again and again. There's an alternative to this. There's a method of achieving a faster feedback loop. When you're using object-oriented technologies, well, regardless of any technology, it's called automated tests, right? You may hear of the term unit tests, but it's test automation. And so it's essentially writing a program to check your program. And the thing is the majority of developers, they know what it is, but they don't know how to do it. And so not only do they not know how to do it, but they're going to tell you that, oh, there's a lot of overhead. There's a lot of maintenance. This is going to take 30% longer if you really want us to write unit tests. Well, unit tests are meant to increase the success of a project. Unit tests are meant to be a safety net. Unit tests are meant to provide quick feedback, not within minutes like they're currently doing now in a manual effort, but within like milliseconds, right? And maybe like seconds when you have like thousands of unit tests to run. But the thing is they're not skilled in doing this, right? They don't know how to do this, and they're too proud to ask for help. These developers are very proud people. And so what happens is, based on ignorance, you're the one you're the one that's paying for it. And I don't mean to laugh at you. I'm just saying that it's just really unfortunate. But this is the reason why I want to communicate this to you. And so you say, "Oh, Scott, yeah, I want to mandate that my developers write some automated tests." All right, cool. It's not that easy. You can't tell them to write automated tests. You can, but you're probably not going to be happy with the results, because the thing is writing automated tests or unit tests, it's an acquired skill. All right, just like the effort that it takes to learn a framework to build a cross-platform application, or to learn a framework to build some application that financial analysts rely on for trading systems. There's a skill, right? And that you're not going to pick up that skill like during lunch. This is something that you have to learn from your mistakes. You have to learn not only how to write tests, but what to write tests for, right? So a lot of developers that are mandated to write tests, okay. They start writing their tests, and guess what? One is, if the tests aren't just wrong, the tests are really testing the wrong thing. So the first thing that developers do is they test implementation details of the rules, and not necessarily the rules itself. So what does that mean? What I mean is they're not testing the behavior of, when you click this button and you have this data entered, that this property should get updated. They're not doing that. They are literally like writing a test for a specific implementation detail that's in the bowels of the system, right? They're not testing at the boundary. They're not testing at the interface in which you do this input and this behavior is exposed. No. They don't know how to do this, right? And they don't have a personal practice. They don't research. They don't read. No, they don't do any of that. So what they do is they have no clue what to test. They don't have no clue how to test. So what they really do is they go deep and they try to test everything. And what happens from that is you now have a lot of tests everywhere, but as soon as there's a new feature, or as soon as there's a change in the requirements, a lot of those tests that were really testing implementation details, they now are broke. And that's where, you know, people blame TDD, or they blame unit testing as overhead, because they were writing the wrong tests at the wrong level. And that's what happens. A mature or a professional developer that has taken upon themselves or hold themselves accountable to learn how to do things the right way, they would have made these mistakes on their own time, versus making these mistakes on your time and having you pay for it. And so, I mean, software development is a practice, and it's important to establish techniques that lead to a higher probability of success in your practice. But unfortunately, the majority of developers believe that you should be paying for their mistakes that they could be making during their own practice off hours, so that they can deliver for you the utmost value on your hours. So that's how your money is being spent. My condolences. If you need someone to audit and provide a report on, you know, how tight their feedback loop is, or if there are optimizations that could be made for building the software that they're building, then there's people available for that. There's a lot of people. There's Robert C. Martin. There's myself, and there's the people that are not on a public platform that they're software craftsmen. I'm sure you can find them. You reach out to me, I can provide a list of them. But before I terminate this, in order for you to find out, right? In order for you to find out what type of developers you have, and if your developers are what I described, which I think is 90% of them, 90% of this industry, then this is what you can do. As a stakeholder, as an employer, as a project manager, this is what you do. You walk over to a developer. It could be a lead developer, doesn't matter, right? In fact, go to your lead developer, right? And hell, call the other developers over there as well. Get them in a group, and tell that developer, as you're standing over their shoulder, hey, what are you working on? You know, and they'll tell you what they're working on. Can you show me the code for that? You know, I want to see the code that maps to the business rule for what you're currently working on. And they'll say, all right, they'll do some navigating. They'll probably be curious why you're looking for the code that reflects the business rule. And they'll navigate to that code. And this is what you do. You say, hey, I want you to show me proof that that code works. I want you to prove to me that this code works based on the requirement that you wrote this code for. How do you do that? I want to see you do it. That's all you have to do. Walk up to them and be like, hey, prove that your code works. See what happens. What's going to happen is you're going to watch them launch the application. They're going to be narrating as they launch the application. And then they're going to put the application into a state, everything I described earlier. And then they're going to set a breakpoint where that code is for the given business rule to be implemented or to be satisfied. But as soon as you see them launch the entire application, say, so when you're writing, when you're satisfying all these business rules, when you're satisfying all these business requirements, is this the way you test your code, or is this your feedback loop for proving that your code works? They might be silent for a while, but they'll probably be like, yeah, why are you asking me, right? And then you know. So if you're interested in how things could be done better, if you're interested in If you have questions, right? If you would like guidance, or if you want someone like myself, doesn't have to be me, but someone like myself to go in there and lead by example and talk about different tools such as code coverage, talk about test mutations, talk about property-based tests. There's a lot of tools out there that are beyond UI tests or tests that you run at the UI level. Then I'm here. I'm Scott Nimrod. My my internet name is Bizmonger. My my consulting company is Bizmonger Incorporated. So reach out to me, scott.nimrod@bizmonger.net. I'm on Twitter, and email me. So that's it. I'm sure I'm going to catch some fallout for this, but I think this is healthy, and I think it's important that people know where their money is really going. That's it. So adios, te veo a ratito. I'm out. 3, 2, 1.